social movement and progress in Europe happened only when the majority was given or seized the opportunity to learn, share, and practice something like the same rights as the elite. So following that example, early in its development as a nation, the United States copied the European educational system of the time. Most of what we have come to be called the Ivy League schools were created in the colonial period to provide high-quality education to those in positions of social, economic, or religious prominence. While Europe preserved the exclusiveness and goals of its universities until after the middle of the 20th century, the US made a true revolution in higher education in mid-1800s. This happened when President Lincoln signed the Morrill Act in 1862 to enable the development of public land-grant universities in the States. This bill opened up the merit-based opportunity for higher education to a much broader range of citizens. The subsequent growth of public universities reflected the belief that higher education can build a citizenry that knows how to make the right choices for both the individual and the collective, that uses learning to improve quality of life, and that advances the economy of the state and the nation. At key moments since then, the US federal government has stepped up to meet a national crisis by augmenting the strength of higher education. The GI Bill of 1944, for example, by providing ready access to a university education to veterans of the Second World War, stimulated enormous growth in public universities. In the same way, as a response to fears of Soviet dominance brought on by the launching of Sputnik, the National Defense Education Act of 1958 triggered an explosion of scientific education at the doctoral level. The revolutionary concept supported by the Morrill Act was further expanded a century later when President Lyndon Johnson signed the Morse-Green Bill. This bill created the Higher Education Facilities Act, which led to the development of what we call today the Public Research University. In his speech on December 16, 1963, President Johnson said, quote, "This act clearly signals our nation's determination to give all our youth the education they deserve. And as long as we have government, that government is going to take its stand to battle the ancient enemies of mankind, illiteracy, poverty, and disease. And in that battle, each one of you are soldiers who wear the badge of honor." Close of quote. The belief as a nation that higher education is a public good and that universities exist to improve the quality of life for all epitomizes the ability of a nation to lead social change. This ability is founded in the principle of social mobility, and that is encouraged and sustained by educating the public, and of enabling the average citizen to learn and develop an individual and collective culture for progress and excellence. Public higher education is the engine that develops the potential which exists outside of the privileged class. The creation of the US Public Research University met the needs of a nation on the verge of enormous social, economic, and technological progress. Today, the US Public Research University is the intellectual trademark of a society that believes in the right of its citizens to equal opportunity, freedom to choose, freedom to learn, and freedom to express oneself. A society that believes in the citizen's right to learn cannot allow that principle to be rewritten as the right to more learning for those who can afford it and less for those who cannot. In today's academic environment, research is a vital part of this learning. For a nation that wants to be a global leader through innovation, innovating must be a skill accessible to all citizens. The ability to think creatively, act entrepreneurially, and drive change when change is needed must be part of the public identity. Why then do public institutions suffer from tremendous bureaucracy, complacency, and perceptions of inferior quality, as those are reflected by the deteriorating state of the facilities, by lack of appropriate teaching materials at times, and generally by limited resources? Most state institutions are strictly governed by state rules and regulations. They must follow state labor practices, and for the most part are not in a position to manage their own enterprises independently. Many times, state legislators and governors make political decisions that benefit a particular state government or party, but impair the ability of public universities to manage their academic enterprise. How can public institutions become entrepreneurial when they are not allowed to practice entrepreneurship when they manage their own organizations? How can public institutions achieve academic excellence by recognizing individual achievement when for some of them faculty salaries are controlled by their states and regulated by an imposed set of metrics that at times has nothing to do with ability or performance in an academic setting? The citizenry expects its young to enjoy low entry points to higher education in terms of both cost and demonstrated ability. But it also demands that these students receive the highest quality of education and the highest exit opportunity that represents a quality delta which cannot be sustained by the tuition provided. And while states want their public universities to support their political agendas, most of them default on their funding promises as soon as they feel any financial pressure. Mid-year decisions, which is becoming a widespread practice in recent years, not only allow states to retract the funds they have given to their institutions, but also retract part of the fees students have paid, thereby indirectly taxing those who have worked very hard to support their children's education. So what is the result? Those public institutions are asked to do much more with much less. But while public institutions contend with diminished funding and the uncertain promises issuing from political realms, their mission and goals have become even more vital to the U.S. As a nation and to the U.S. interest during times of social and political turmoil. Public higher education has been the engine that supports social mobility. This mobility has been particularly important for the U.S. The U.S. is a nation of immigrants. It has drawn its strength and leadership from generations of those Americans who crossed the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the North and South borders to reach an opportunity they wanted to make a reality. As President Lyndon Johnson said in his speech on the Great Society, people have come to the U.S. not merely to live a good life, but to create a new world. And public higher education has played a key role in helping these people create a new world. In today's environment, public universities find themselves even more committed to this cause. We are socially responsible for educating the children of all Americans, for educating the children of all immigrants who come and who want to participate in creating a better community, in creating a better nation, and in creating the future leaders of their country and possibly of the world.